Hi, everyone. Welcome to P21 Efficiency Training Podcast. My name is Al Hughes, and today's topic is going to be order entry shortcuts. And for everybody attending today, we assume that most of you already have a basic understanding of P21, and especially the order entry screen. But what we're going to focus on are some special shortcuts or little tools that help you be more efficient in this screen. So we're going to skip over a lot of things we think you already know, and we're going to go right into some things that will help you be more efficient. Wouldn't hurt to have a pen and paper with you to make some notes, and keep in mind that at the end of the call, I'm going to show you where there's some SOPs that talk about some of the things that we cover in today's call. So just to give you a short preview of what we're going to talk about today, we're going to spend just a minute on order entry header defaults. The best part of the training probably will be previous requests, which is a really good tool to help you add things to your sales order without manually keying in the actual item ID. We'll look at a bunch of other right mouse click options that help you add or delete line items or change dispositions and so forth, and we'll go through all those. Another really good tool we're going to talk about is the Transaction Master, which you access by hitting F10, and it's kind of like having on-screen reports that are current as of the moment you open them up. And the last thing is we'll go in and just talk about a few different menu tools and icons that can really help you be pretty efficient in some of the things you're doing. So what we're going to do first is I'm going to pull up the order entry screen from P21, and we're going to go right into that. And I've already populated my ship to ID on the screen, and so when I do that, everybody knows that all the header populates. And you're all already aware about the actual shipping defaults that populate based on what was profiled there. So you know that those get pre-profiled with the most common scenario that your customer might use, and then you can still override them as you're keying an order. But what I want to talk about right at this moment is the required date field, because this is a field that oftentimes gets overlooked. When you start your sales order, it defaults to today's date, just like your order date does. And the problem is that some of these orders might have 2 to 3 week lead times, even some of them several month lead times. So what you want to try to do is try to put in there something that closely represents what you believe the required date should be, and in some cases it might be what your customer tells you they need it by. In other cases it might be what the time frame is going to be to get the item shipped and so forth. So since it automatically populates to today's date and the system doesn't force you to go into this field, you need to take some personal responsibility and try to remember that you need to click into this field and you need to put an actual date there. So you can either type it in or you can click on the actual calendar. And I'm going to go ahead and select the 25th. And notice that when I select the date, a default pops up below that's automatically got the first option checked, which says update line items with the required date. And that's what we normally want it to default to, because what that means is that all future line items we add to this order will default to 125.19. Keeping in mind that any items that we put on the order, we can still click on the extended info tab of the line item and change any individual line to a different required date. So I think the biggest thing we want to emphasize here is that we see a lot of orders that get keyed where they forget to click into this field at all. And so it says today's date, and by the time tomorrow's open order reports print, this order shows late, even though it might not really be getting there for 3 weeks. So just try to be conscious of that date field. Let's go right into the previous request option now, because that is a very efficient tool that's going to help you key orders by dramatically reducing the amount of keystrokes. So to start off with, I want to show you a tab that resembles previous request. So if you look up in the upper right, there's a tab that says Customer Sales History, and I'm going to click on it so it opens up. And the basic code that's used in this is similar to the code that's used when we query in previous requests, and you'll see that in just a minute. But the only point I want to make is that in customer sales history, it shows all items invoiced to this customer in the past year. And it tells us the item, the invoice, the sales order number, the price, the margin, all kinds of different information. And we can click on any field and sort it alphanumerically. And if we click it again, it goes from ascending to descending. So all of this basic information we're looking at here resembles the query that we're going to go run on previous requests. The only difference is the query we're going to run has checkboxes on the left-hand side, so we can select items to re-add to our order. So I'm just going to get back out of that tab. I'm sure everybody has already used Customer Sales History tab plenty in the past. So I'm going to right mouse click now and bring up Previous Request. So I right mouse click down in the line item area, and notice I'm pointing now to Previous Request, which I'm going to left mouse click. When the query actually starts to populate, it shows the customer ID of the customer that's on this order. And I'm going to go ahead and leave that just like it is, but I'm going to click into the first cell in the upper left, and I'm going to right mouse click. And when I do, notice down here towards the bottom, there's one that says Apply Query. I want to left click on Apply Query. So when I do that, I'm starting to get some of the same information that came up there in the Customer Sales History tab. So these are all things that the customer has been invoiced for in the past year. It shows all basically the similar data that we were looking at in the Customer Sales History tab, except it has checkboxes on the left. The first column allows me to add that line to my sales order. The second one allows me to recalculate the price. And if my cost for DXP has gone up in the last year, this second box tells it to recalculate the customer sale price so that we make the same profit margin as we did on the previous sale. So with that said, I can still sort all these alphanumerically just like I could in the customer sales history screen. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and randomly add some items. Now keep in mind, like I said before, this previous request is great to add lines to your order without having to key in the item ID. But it only works well if it's something where you have a customer where they reorder things a lot, because it's showing you things they've already been invoiced for. So if they're trying to order something brand new, you probably cannot use previous requests for that. Notice also there's a white column with the quantity, and these are the quantities that were on the last transaction. So in some cases, I might want to change what's showing in that quantity field because maybe they're not ordering the same quantity this time. So maybe I'm changing that 200 to 20 down there, and I change the other one to 360. And I could go down and scroll down and keep adding items. I could add 20, 30, 50 items. The more line items I add, when I click OK, I'm going to get an hourglass. And if I only added here, I added 6 or 7 items, I'm just going to get an hourglass for a few seconds here. And I'm going to get a prompt pop up that's going to tell me that one of these lines is below 23%. But I'm going to say yes to that. The same prompts would pop up if I was manually keying the order. So you can see now all the items I selected there popped onto my order without me having to key a single letter or number or any part of the nomenclature of those item IDs. Notice they all allocated if they were in stock. So what I want to show you is that I can, right at this moment, just like if I had manually keyed these lines, I could change any of these quantities I want to. So if the 50 here was supposed to be 30 and I missed it in the window, in the query window, I can still change it because none of them are allocated to a pick ticket yet, or a transfer or a PO, and I can also change the sell price if I need to. But at some point down the road, as I'm processing this order, you will lose access to change things, just like you normally do now when you're manually keying a line. So I want to show you some other right mouse click options now. And so we're going to do some scenarios. We're just going to make up a few different scenarios that allow us to use some of these options. And I'm going to point out that line 2, the order's for 360, but we only have 200 in stock. So theoretically, this order would be shipped in 2 shipments. Maybe one of them would ship out of our stock, and the other one would be a back order. Maybe it would go direct from the supplier. Maybe it would come into us and ship at another time 2 weeks down the road or something. But the customer would end up paying 2 freight shipments. So let's just pretend I want to have one shipment here. And I'm going to show you how I can change this because they're not all available in my stock. Maybe I want to make them go direct from the supplier. And I'm just throwing these things out here so I can use some of these right mouse tools and show you how they work. So what we're going to do is we're going to change the disposition on all these to D for direct. And if I was manually doing that, I would have to go in here and unallocate each of these lines manually by clicking in them and then going to the disposition and doing a drop down and changing that to D instead of B or whatever they are. So, but all I have to do is go up to the header in the right side of the header, and there's an option here. I do a right mouse click and all these options open up, and one of them is order dispositions. So when I left click on order dispositions, I get this option to select from the drop downs, and I'm going to choose direct ship. So when I click OK, watch what happens. First it asks me if I'm sure I want to change them all, and I say yes. Now notice what happens here. First, I'm getting a prompt just like I would if I manually key these lines, and it's basically telling me that on a back-ordered line, if there's no PO cost, I might have to put in a PO cost before I create the PO. You know, it's just alerting me there's no PO cost on each of those lines. So for each of those lines, I get that prompt and I say, yes, I want to continue. Now it's going to display all those lines on my order. And you can see they're no longer allocated. They've all switched to D for directs. And theoretically now, if I wanted to, I could hit save and the PO wizard would open up and start creating the one supplier PO to the vendor to have them ship all these items direct to my customer. So that was a real quick, easy way to change all my dispositions on there. But let's throw a few other options out there too that might allow us to use some other right mouse click options. Let's say that I'm looking at line 3 and I'm just now realizing, God, that's the wrong part number. When I was in the query window, I checked the wrong box and got the wrong part number. So I can come down here to my area in the line items below and I can right mouse click. And one of my options is to delete line. So I can insert a line or I can delete a line. I'm going to delete now, and it says, am I sure I want to delete it? You can see now it's totally deleted line 3. By the same token, I could have inserted a line, and by selecting insert line, you can see what it does there. It gives me an area where I can manually key in a new line, and it would be in the middle there where my cursor was. But instead of manually keying one, I could still go back and choose previous request again, and I could add 30 lines in the middle here. You know, I could add 10 lines, I could add 2, whatever. So the same query pops up, and this will give us a little more practice on previous requests. I'm going to do it one more time. So I'm going to go to the upper left field and I'm going to right mouse click, and that gives me the option to apply query again. When I click apply query, it's going to show all those items again. So I could sort, I could scroll, I could do whatever I want to find the items. And just to make it simple, I'm just going to grab these 2 items here and say, let's add these 2 to the order. And it's going to add them in the middle where my cursor is. So I'm not going to change the quantities. I'm going to leave those the same. I'm going to click OK. I didn't click calculate change price either. I'm getting these prompts that tell me I'm going to need a PO cost because they're both back ordered items. That's okay. Now, a couple things I want to point out. First of all, it added them both in the middle of the screen over here, in the middle of the order where my cursor was. It made them D for direct because a few minutes ago when I went up in the header and right mouse clicked and changed everything to D disposition, not only does it change everything on my order to D dispositions, but anything I add to my order in the future will default to D, but I can still change them to S if I want, and that's what I want to do. So I could do a drop down here and just change this to S now because I don't want to direct ship those 2 ISCAR items. Now notice I still get those PO prompts, but we'll take care of those in a second. So I change them both to S. I go over to my PO cost. I put in my actual PO cost on each of these items. Okay, and then I'll do the other item here. Now they're populated, so I'm going to also populate my PO cost on all my direct ship items, because if I'm going to use the PO wizard to create any purchase orders, I have to have these fields populated, or it's going to cause problems on my purchase orders that I create. Because just like if I manually keyed the order, whatever I type in here is going to be the cost showing up on my supplier PO, and everybody is already aware of that because that's the same way it's worked all along. So I'm just populating them. So theoretically, right now, if I was to hit save, I would create 2 supplier POs, one direct going to 3M and one to ISCAR with 2 specials on it that are going to come into us. If I hit save now, that's what would happen. But we want to do some more things here. So let's say that line 5 down here does not have a customer part number associated to it, and it should. So I want to point out, I'm going to follow this across way to the right over here. And notice this column over here, the column header says CPN, that's customer part number. And it says the customer's part number is C024 on the second from the last line. Well, all I want you to be aware of is that before, when we wanted to change a customer part number, we had to open the sidebar and go to a main a folder in the inventory folder for customer part number maintenance, and we had to change it over there. But now I have a right mouse click option, and if you look right where I'm pointing, it says customer or create customer part number. If I left click on that, this little window pops up. There's a white area where it says customer part number, and if I wanted to change it to something else, I could type that in right there and hit save. And if I hit save, it would change it on this sales order and on all future sales orders. I'm not actually going to do that because they already have a customer part number, but you can see the save button there. And so that's a pretty good option that allows you to quickly change the customer part number at any time. So we looked at the right mouse options we looked at was previous request, inserting lines, deleting lines, adding customer part number, changing dispositions. And let's just do one more. We have something called the help button down here at the very bottom. And if I do the point to the help, I get all these options on the right. I usually select help for this window. And what I like about this is it tells me everything about the order entry window that I might possibly want to know. The purpose, the function of it. It even goes down here and tells me, like, here's the header in green font with the words underlined. Those are the header tabs. And the second group of green font words are the line item tabs. And if you notice, I'm going to click on item shipments. And when I do that, it tells me that this tab has pick tick number, print date, carrier, tracker number, invoice date, quantity, and on, and gives me all kinds of information pertaining to that tab so that I understand what that tab is for. I could drill down on any underlined word, or I can go back to the order entry thing by clicking that maroon font again, and I'm back in the order entry options. And notice down here on the bottom left in order entry, I can get information about down payments, about scheduled orders, about credit cards, on-the-fly items. All kinds of good information is right here in the screen. And keep in mind, we don't use every single tool that P21 offers, but we do use about 99% of them. So most of what's in here is pretty accurate. And so just keep in mind that that is one of your good right mouse click options is the help option. So we're going to go right into another option here, and I'm just going to open a different screen. And it has no order on it yet, but it does show a sales location ID. What we're going to talk about here is Transaction Master. So it's an online reporting tool. And so if I hit F10, it populates. Now, I'm just going to show you right now by hitting F10. And by the way, some of you, maybe your keys aren't all working on your keyboard, maybe. If your F10 key isn't working, notice I can go up to Inquire in the upper left, and all my F keys are up there. I can click the F10 one, Transaction Master, and it works just like if I hit the F10 screen on my keyboard. Now, what it does is it opens up a summary of all my transactions in my branch as of this very moment when I hit F10. So notice it's got orders, and below that, order line items, production orders, below that, lines, secondary processes, service orders, RMAs, POs, transfers, and inventory returns. So I can look at the actual transactions, or it tells me how many lines there are total. And then it's got tabs going across the top that drill down into more information. So we're going to look at both the items here, and we're going to look at some tabs. So to start with, I'm going to click on 132 sales orders. And now let's talk about, and notice it opened it all up here. And again, just like any screen in P21, I could click the top of them and sort them alphanumerically, click it again, and it goes from ascending to descending. So same thing applies in most places of P21. But what I want to give you a scenario why you as a CSR might use this screen now and then. So we all know that CSRs have the open order portal where they can see their current open orders, their current quotes, and so forth. But let's just say that you've got 3 or 4 CSRs at your branch, and one of them is on vacation this week, and you get a call from a customer saying, hey, I just gave an order to John Doe yesterday. I can't remember the actual PO number I used, but I want to add a line to it. What you might do is you might come over here to takers and scroll down to that person's sales orders, and then you might look across and find that customer or that ship to, or you could sort it by the customer. And when you find the customer involved, look over and find the taker that was involved. You could even go and sort by order date because you want to just look at the orders that were yesterday's, and you might go descending or whatever, and then you're just looking at the ones that were done yesterday that are still open. So once you find the order, notice that the far left column is the sales order number. And when I point to that column, I get the hand, which means I can drill down. So I click on that. When I drill down, it's going to show me this specific sales order and all the lines that are on it. So this one just has one line on it. If I needed to actually add a line, I could copy this sales order number and paste it into the order entry screen and pull it up and add a line. But if I'm just looking for information, there's plenty of tabs up here that give me all kinds of different information about the order. So it's really good. This screen is view only, but it's really good for searching for any kind of data for various transactions as of the moment that you hit F10. So let's talk about another scenario that might come up, and this might be for a customer service manager. So we all know that customer service managers look at their operational excellence reports every morning, first thing in the morning. And one of the reports they might do is the unconfirmed pick ticket report, which they review and maybe send to the warehouse staff to look at as well. Well, let's say that he looked at the service manager or customer service manager looked at the unconfirmed pick ticket report at 8 o'clock this morning. But let's just say right now it's 4 o'clock in the afternoon and it's month end. And you want to be sure you're getting everything out the door that needs to be out the door. See the shipments tab up here, the fourth one from the left? If I click the shipments tab, these are all the current pick tickets in my branch. And they're current as of when I hit F10 just a few minutes ago. So if it's 4 o'clock on the last day of the month, this is a really good tool because there might be things here, and I might want to sort it by pick date, descending, so that here I'm seeing some of the things that picked today, and I want to be sure that certain ones are getting out the door. And maybe I'm just a warehouse, maybe I'm the warehouse manager, and I'm looking at here. So it could be the customer service manager, the warehouse manager. Anybody can look at this. And this is helpful in finding those recent pick tickets that need to get out the door today, or things that maybe you've already shipped but somebody forgot to confirm them. And you could actually find them here and then pull them up in your shipping screen and confirm them. So there's multiple reasons and scenarios where you might want to go here and look for transactions. And the best thing about this screen is that it's live information, as of the moment you hit F12. So even things like physical counts, inventory adjustments, if you use service orders, there's information about service orders in here, production orders, returns. So keep in mind that is a very helpful screen to view current transactions. And what I'm going to do now, I'm going to go back to our original sales order that we had pulled up a minute ago. And I'm just going to show you some icons that are pretty helpful. So if we look at the order I have here, it's pretty much ready to hit save, and the PO wizard would start creating those POs for us. But let's just do a few things before we hit save. Let's look at some options here. First, I want to point out some keyboard options. I can hold down the Alt key on the left side of my keyboard with my thumb and tap the letter D, and it opens up the sidebar so that I can start searching through these folders for different things. So that's the Alt key. I hold the Alt key down with my thumb, and I tap the letter D as in David with my forefinger. Also, we want to point out to you that in the bottom left, there's a white field here where I can start typing in information. And there might be screens that I don't use very often and I forget where they're at. So I start typing in keywords here, and then they start appearing up above, and I find that screen by those keywords. And then I double click it up above, and it populates that screen on my it populates that window on my screen. So I'm just going to go back here again and show you a few other shortcuts. We already know that we all have the My menu, which makes it a favorite, and it's checked when you have it. But some of you might not be aware that there's also icons up here that are created when you add something to your menu. And if I just point to the icon, it tells me which one it is. So if I want to go directly from one screen to the other, I can just click on an icon here, and it's going to open up that other screen automatically. So we also oftentimes forget that when we open up a new screen, the screen behind it does not go away unless you manually make sure it goes away. So notice in here there's a window option, and when I click on window, all the screens I currently have open are showing up here behind here. And if I want to cascade them, there's an option there to cascade them so that they're all listed out here in a cascading fashion, so I can click on any one of them I want to see. I can also go up and tile them so that they're all out there in different manners that you see right there. The only active one is the one with the blue bar at the top, so I can click over here in any other one to make it active. But then there's also some icons that allow me to close these screens. So first, let me point out, I'm going to open one more because look in the bottom right. It says 63% down here in the bottom right. The more screens I open with the more lines on them, the more data starts, or the more bandwidth I use. So if I get above 65 or 70%, that number in the bottom right is going to turn yellow. So the more screens I open, the more likely it is going to turn yellow. There, it just turned yellow for you in the bottom right. It says 72% now because I just opened this screen. I'm going to go back to window, and I'm going to tile them again, and there's all those screens opened up, and I'm at 72%. If I open another screen, it would turn red because at around 80% it turns red, and that just means I'm way out there using a lot of bandwidth, and things are going to start really slowing down a lot. So normally most CSRs they try to keep 2 to 4 screens open in the background. Their most common screens, they try to keep them open. Everything else, when they're done using it, they close it. So let me just show you a couple things now. I'm going to close some of these screens, but before I do, let me show you that I can scroll through these screens with my keyboard. So if I tap my thumb on if I hold my thumb on the control key and tap the tab key, it moves me through different screens that I already have open. So this might be a good way to move through your screens if you're looking for one. Each time I tap it, moves to a different screen. So as I get to that screen, I might want to close it because I'm yellow in the bottom right. But let's go back now and let's change this. Oops, excuse me. Let's change this to tile again. And I'm going to show you an easy way to close screens. So I'm going to click on RMA Receipts, which is the second one on the top there. And there's an icon over here with a red X in it. And if I just click that, it closes that screen. So up in the upper left, the icon with the red X closes screens. If I highlight that one and click the red X again, it closes that one. Now, let's look at this purchase order one that I just highlighted. I can close that one too, but it actually has lines on it. It's probably better to sweep it clean first. And I'm pointing at the icon on the far left, right next to the one with the red X. It's got a maroon-looking eraser on it. It looks like a whiteboard with an eraser. If I click that, it's going to clear this, and it says, do I want to clear it? So first it cleared the screen. Now I'm going to go ahead and click the red one that closes it. So notice my yellow color in the bottom right just went away. So I can use those icons. Notice I can also just click the X in each one of these screens and close them too. So I'm in the top right now. I could click that X and close it. And then I can go back here and I can layer these again. I can cascade them, whatever I want to do. So let's look at one more keyboard option here, and that is the option to scroll through all the applications that I have open. So if I hold my thumb on the Alt key and tap the Tab key, you can see that these are all my different applications, my P21, my PowerPoint, my emails, my folders, the internet, some individual emails, and my Skype, So wherever I want to be, I can go through those screens or go through those applications just by using my fingers on the keyboard. Or, like I said, there's these icons up above that I can use as well. So I think we've got through most of the things we wanted to cover today, but let me just go to the Operational Excellence webpage because I just want to show you a couple SOPs out there that cover some of this stuff. So I'm going to the let me go back to that again. I'm going to the actual order processing tab at the bottom here. When I click on that, I'm going to go to best practices first, because in best practices, there's a whole bunch of information, but one of them is a Word document that says P21 keyboard shortcuts. So I can open that one up, and it shows a lot of the things I just did, a lot of different keyboard combinations that will do things, So that's pretty helpful. I can also go back to where we were a second ago, and I can go to SOPs instead of best practices. So under SOPs are all kinds of individual SOPs that talk about different things in the order entry screen that I can do. And notice the bottom option is previous request. So if I open that SOP on previous requests, it tells me a lot of the different things we did in previous requests today to pull up queries, to check things, to add them to my order. So that can be pretty helpful too. So keep in mind, tons of information is out there in the Operational Excellence webpage, all kinds of SOPs. So let's do this now. Let's talk about some of the things we just went through. We kind of spent the first part of the few minutes of the training talking about the required date in the header of the order entry screen, and we just touched on defaults real briefly that are set up in the ship to maintenance. And keep in mind that you do have to open a help ticket with op support if you want to change those defaults, but they can all be overridden while you're keying a sales order in the order entry screen. Then we went through the previous request option. So in the previous request option, we showed you how to do a query and pull up all the items that have been invoiced to a customer in the past year. And we showed you that you can sort them and filter them by columns and by categories. And we showed you there's checkboxes to select what you want to add to your order. And there's another row of checkboxes if you want to recalculate the sell price on items where DXP has had a cost increase. And we showed you that once you're done selecting and sorting and doing all that stuff in your query, you just click the OK button in the upper right, and it adds all your lines to your sales order without you having to manually key in a single one of them. So again, previous request works really good if they're things that your customer orders repeatedly. If they're brand new items that your customer orders, you could actually put in some other customer's customer ID that has ordered it, and you could query that and then add them to that. Or you can manually key the item nomenclature in just like you have in the past. Then we talked about a few other right mouse click options, which included inserting lines, deleting lines, adding and linking the customer part number, altering the line dispositions, and we even went into that help option at the end that has a lot of good information about various screens in the P21 system. And finally, we went into the transaction master, and we showed you that you can hit F10 and get live on-screen information that works really well if it's the latter part of your day because the morning reports are no longer accurate. The good thing about it is it provides instant visibility of all your transactions, and it allows you to drill down into specific details of those transactions. But it is a view-only screen. You can't actually change any data in it, but once you find it, you can pull up those orders in the order entry screen and make changes to them. We also touched on some icons that are helpful and how to do some keyboard searching with just by keying in a combination of keystrokes. So there's a lot of different things we went through, from using those different icons to go directly to your screen. We even searched with a keyword, and we just tried to use some icons that some of you might not have been aware of. So that's pretty much all of today's topic. We do encourage you to attend other podcast training on other topics